So the first thing you're going to want to do is line up your bumper to drill the hole into your dome if you're using the bumper with the dome boards. So you're going to measure from the edge of your table 9 1/8 of an inch and roughly 2 inches inside the dome. And that's to the middle hole on your bumper. Then we're going to close the dome up and mark our drill hole. So once you have the dome closed, you're going to eyeball where that middle hole is. The most important thing is the height, and you're going to put a dot with a Sharpie or a permanent marker just to see where you're going to do your drill. That's not a very good dot that I did, but you're going to be placing a dot nonetheless in the middle hole. If anything, it's better to be higher than lower. You're going to make this hole bigger than the actual screw, and if it's not exact, we can always adjust. Next, we'll prep the inside of your dome. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that the inside of your dome, you've peeled off the yellow dasher, and you can also peel off the white sticker that's on the longer side of the dome. You can keep the white sticker on there if you want. It will not affect the sticking of the double-sided tape, but just make sure the rest of the dome is clean. When you're applying the double-sided tape, make sure that you're putting the first strip close to the edge, the beveled edge of the plastic dome. You can see the beveled edge is where the blue arrow is. Give yourself a couple millimeters. It doesn't have to be right butted close to it, but you do want it somewhat up there. And the second strip just below it is fine. You don't want the double-sided tape to go under the dome as well, right? So you want to make sure that your installation looks like it does in this picture here. Continue applying pressure to the double-sided tape. Work your way all the way around the dome. Then do the second strip below it all the way around the dome, applying pressure as well with the fingers, and your end result should look like this. A new note, we do recommend you add just in the corner another layer in between both strips that you've already applied, and you can add a second and a third layer below that at most. You want to make sure that that board is actually heated and pushed into that corner. Once you have your strips all the way around, double-sided, all the way around the dome, then you can start to apply the plastic dasher. The plastic dome board, you want to start it at the middle screw hole. So it'll be right in the middle, and then you can run it all the way across. The top edge of the boards should fit just below the beveled edge of the dome. So that's kind of your guideline. You want to be snug right to where that the dome bevel out. Once you get it started, the next thing you want to do is take your hairdryer and blow dry the corners. You want to heat those corners up because it'll help form. The boards are made out of ABS, so they won't just turn into jello, but they will bend a lot easier when you've heated them. So make sure you heat the corners and then forcefully push it back into the corner. The most important thing on the corners is you want to make sure that the top of the boards, so when the dome is closed, the top part of the boards is firmly attached to the corner of the dome and the double-sided tape. Your plastic dome actually kind of bends out, so there will be a little bit of a gap below. And we've also went over how you can add some double-sided tape to the corners to make it touch the boards. The more you heat that corner, the better you're going to get it to fit into that corner. So the gap on the bottom side, which you'll see a picture coming up, will be fairly small. So once you heat that corner, just move along. And you can heat the whole side, the long sides as well. A little heat never hurt anybody. It'll just make the plastic stick a little better, and it'll also take the rigidity out of the plastic. So once it actually cools down, it'll kind of stay form-fitted. So work your way across into the other corner. Gradually heating, and as you can see here, we're heating before where the corner actually bends is where we start the heating, and then we're forcefully pushing that back into the corner against the double-sided tape. The amount of time you want to have the hairdryer on there, depending on your settings, you want it to be on there so you'll feel the plastic actually start to be a lot more easily formed. So that's good. And then once you push it in there, once I have it stuck to the double-sided tape, I always keep a little bit of the heat moving. You don't want to just keep it in one spot. You want to keep it moving just a little bit, and that way it won't melt or burn any of the plastic. Like I said, this is an ABS plastic, so it won't burn or melt right away. You definitely have some play time there, but it's always nice to keep the hairdryer moving a little bit so it's nice even heat over the entire bit of plastic. And once you have it formed and fitted, give it a good squeeze, make sure it's touching the double-sided tape. Your other end should also end in the middle of the bolt hole. Here's a picture right here. You can see how it should look. It's always good to test fit your pieces. We pre-cut them, but it's always nice to test fit your pieces. If you need to trim them down, a good sturdy pair of scissors will be able to cut the ABS plastic. Also, having a little gap is important. In case the heat expands and contracts, a little gap will be covered by your decal anyways. So if you got a nice little gap there, that's important. You don't want them butted right together because you'll start to have the actual plastic pop out in other areas when it expands. So make sure there's a little gap there. Continue on to the rest, matching the start edge in the middle of the bolt hole, and then working your way up, heating the corners and forcefully pushing them into the dome corner. The boards will stay no matter what in those corners with a double-sided tape and it being firmly put all the way around the boards anyways. But if you feel like you want to add a little bit more double-sided tape to make it thicker on the bottom corners, we've showed you earlier how to do that. The heat's very important to get it to mold and to help relieve that tension and the rigidity in those corners. Once it actually cools, it'll stay kind of form-fitted. You want to make sure that you are staying level to that inner bevel that's on the dome. The bevel that's there inside your plastic dome, you want to make sure the top of your new boards are sitting just below that. Here you can see the little gap that will be on the bottom. And as we previously stated, adding that second layer in between the two strips of double-sided tape will also help with adhesion. And you can add below the second layer you just added another second and third layer if you want to really make that gap minimal and actually have the boards touching double-sided tape. The next thing you're going to do is, once your board is on, you're going to drill through the board you just applied. So once again, make sure the drill is doing its job, high RPMs, and gently applying some pressure to drill through the dome board. Next, we're going to apply the decal. So you can pause this video right here and go to a previous video that we have on installing the Pro Kit, and in there you can see how we apply the decal to your boards. It's the exact same way, and once you've applied your decal, you can come back to this video. Now that your decal is applied, you can attach the bumper. All you're going to do is thread the bumper with the screw. We recommend you don't tighten it very firmly yet. Just gently thread it onto your dome board. The biggest thing that you want to make sure is that the bottom of the bumper is flush with the bottom of your dome board. You don't want it to be lower. If it is lower, you can bore out more of your hole. So you can insert the drill, turn it on, and apply pressure up or down, whichever way you need it to go, to bore out a little bit more of the hole. You want it to sit flush on the ice surface. The hole can be a little loose because all it's doing is when you screw it tighter, it'll apply pressure against the wall and it'll rest on the ice surface. The next thing you're going to do is apply your outer decal. Your outer decal, there is 4 corners. So you want to take one of your 4 corners. The middle of the decal should be lined up directly with the corner of your table. There is some wiggle room, so the best thing to do is get it lined up as best you can with your eyeball, push in the middle part, and then work your fingers to the outside. The yellow bottom dasher should go to the very bottom of the dome before it Basically, curves. All you're doing is covering the white plastic of your new boards and the double-sided tape. So make sure that the red line of your outer decal is not going over the bevel of your dome, and the yellow should just be right where the curve starts of the bottom of your dome. Once you have the corners set, you can line up the middle and apply pressure to the middle of the decal, and then once you're happy with making sure it's level, work your thumbs to the outside, getting rid of all the bubbles, and it should line up. If there is large bubbles that you can't seem to push out, you can peel back a little bit of the decal and push out with your thumb and reapply. Happy gaming! The one big thing that you want to make sure too is when you're putting the dome back on, the ramps that are in the corner and behind the net, your boards will fit behind them, but you want to make sure that you adjust when you're putting it down to go behind the ramps. Your bolts will actually pull down the bumper, and it should give you a nice seamless surface between the ice surface and your boards.